Okay, I think we're live. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to today's virtual write-in, like middle end of Camp NaNoWriMo. Kind of exciting.
Like mid-July. So if you know the song, I forgot what song it was, but there's a song about it.
All right. If it comes to you, you can just burst out into song.
Yes.
We've never done a musical version of a virtual write-in before.
You know what? That's going to be on the bucket list for next time. Stay on the lookout. Musical virtual write-in.
Yeah, it's like, all the long-running TV shows always have to have a musical episode, right? So
yeah, it's just not the same without it. I see people are dropping where they are from. I know I'm in a different location than I usually am. I'm in India right now, visiting family, and so that's where I am. But I see there are some people from Toledo, from Springfield, some from Israel, Cali. I know you're in Cali right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep, in California.
Is it still hot there, or is the weather, cooling down a little bit?
I mean, where I am, because I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, so we get all the fog coming in from the ocean, so it's usually much cooler here than it is. But as soon as you get over the hills into the central California Valley, then it is extremely hot. So I'm not there, but
yeah.
And I know that we have some people in Europe who are dealing with extremely hot temperatures right now. So if you're watching, go ahead.
I think it's my friend was telling me, it's 88 is the extremely hot temperature. And I'm I live in Texas normally. And so I'm just 88 is a good day for us, but also we don't have ACs. So it's a whole different ballpark. But yeah.
Having the infrastructure to deal with it is so big. But anyway, if you're dealing with weather that is extremely unpleasant, then I hope that you're doing well and staying safe. But
wishing the best. We have it's really nice here. It's just it's monsoon season, so a nice steady flow of rain. It's very aesthetic, but my shoes are ruined, so that's sad. But
oh, no.
I'm actually very upset about it, but it's okay. But yeah, I mean, I guess we can start.
Oh wait, have we introduced ourselves yet?
Oh wait,
I know.
So I forget.
It's the middle of the month. It's the time when my brain starts to melt. So if you don't know us, my name's Catherine. I'm the communications manager at NaNoWriMo, and my pronouns are she, her, or they, them.
And I am Ria. I am the programs fellow for NaNoWriMo for this year. And my pronouns are she, her.
Awesome. Okay. And I'm just looking to see if we have any other announcements. I'm curious what people are working on for camp. If you haven't already created your project on the NaNoWriMo website for camp or your own independent goal, you should definitely do that. And I had something I was going to say, and the thought just flew right out of my head. Like I said, it's that time, but yep, that's what I got.
And even though we're dead in the middle of July, we decided, it'd be a good idea to talk about beginnings today, specifically hooks and progressions. So I know some people have been asking for this one for a while. And so even though we might not be starting our novels, we're always starting new scenes and in new introductions, where a good hook always comes handy. And so wherever you are in your novel, or I hope that this helps and, get some cogs moving. And so I guess to begin, we'll talk a little bit on hooks. So stay tight for a sec, but basically, if you don't know, a hook is a nifty way of saying a few sentences or a short paragraph at the beginning of a book, a section, a chapter, a scene, whatever, that draws the reader in and makes them want to know what happens next. So think of it as a sales pitch for your next scene or whatever you're writing. And so if you want to like know some examples of like some hooks that we personally like and picked out, and like some types we'll talk more about in the write-in. These are a couple. You can have a hook that starts in the like, middle of an action scene. These are my favorite because I think they're like the most like, oh, people are like, oh, just thrown into it. But like for example, in Charlotte's Web, um, you know, the hook, the first line is, "Where's Papa going with that axe?" said Fern to her mother as they were setting the table for breakfast. It definitely is a sentence that intrigues for sure. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a little bit startling. It's like, oh, there's an axe, but they're getting ready for breakfast, and like, yeah, where is he going? I want to know that too. So
Exactly. And then there's also like hooks that like possess a peculiar or interesting fact that like pertains to your story, but like is just like so bizarre in some way that it's like, oh, I want to know more about this. So like in Sarah Novic's Girl at War, the hook is the war in Zagreb began over a pack of cigarettes, which obviously at first sight is like, huh? And like you immediately like, I want to know what that even means, like what that scene would look like.
yeah, like how does that work? How does a war start over a pack of cigarettes? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it can also be like a confusing statement that could pique the audience's interest. Like in Fahrenheit 451, the hook is, "It was a pleasure to burn." Like it is factually not a pleasure to burn, right? And so you're like, okay, this is interesting.
Hmm.
And then a couple more. You can also like, explore the past. A lot of authors do this. Like Octavia Butler in Kindred began with, "I lost my arm on my last trip home." So that's like obviously a piece of information that sets a scene, but is also like, oh, I wonder how she did that.
Hmm. And it like tells you a
And
little bit about the world too, because like most people aren't super blasé about losing a limb, you know, when they're on a trip home. But
exactly. And then finally, this is pretty common, but you can consider using a descriptive hook. So like in 1984, the hook was, "It was a bright, cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13." Specifically, what's interesting about this is bright, cold, like that juxtaposition is like, oh, okay. And so it immediately kind of makes you curious. If you haven't noticed, a trend here is curiosity is what you're aiming for.
yeah, and I think also at that one, it's like 13 is a military time, but it's not like widely known. So it's when it's like, oh, the clocks were striking 13, like all of them. It's like, oh wait, something is different about this world than the one that like most of us know. So yeah.
Exactly. So like I think like I hope you guys got a gist of like types of hooks you like liked, what would make you want to read, what would make your readers want to read. But like the trend seems to be something that piques your curiosity and something that reveals something about your world, or like the story that you're telling. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess we can dive into our prompts then. This
Yeah,
will be
yeah, let's do it. Oh,
5 minutes. It's just to get your feet wet, but we're gonna write a hook for the following prompt. If you floats your fancy. But the prompt is, a writer is running from one of their characters who has suddenly come to life. So write like a hook and like an introduction for this prompt. And of course, as always, if you don't want to, if this prompt doesn't do it for you, you're always free to, write a hook for something else or do some free writing.
yeah. All right, so I'm gonna set a timer for 5 minutes. Last week we tried to experiment with some on-screen timers. I'm still experimenting with that and seeing what we can get to work. So for now, it's just gonna be old school, me on my phone. But yeah, so we'll take 5 minutes on the clock, and let's get started writing now. Got about a minute left. Okay, time is up. Go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. If you want to share either how you use that prompt or the word count you got during that prompt, or a sentence that you wrote that you really like, feel free to put that in the chat. How'd that go for you?
That went pretty well for me. I used the sort of middle of action scene hook where I basically I just like described that like the writer was running from the character, and so that's what I did. What about you?
I strayed a little bit from the prompt because I was like, oh man, what would it be like if my characters came chasing after me? But yeah, I did. I kind of started. I think I kind of started with some of the description of like, oh, this weird. Is it a weird dream sequence or is it not? So that's kind of what I went with.
Awesome. Softly Duck Feather said, I used myself and my character, and for some reason I made him evil. That's an interesting take.
Maybe your character's trying to tell you something.
What a Music Geek said, their hook was, I woke up sad the morning of July 19th, 2020, after this having the strangest dream that was at my 15-year-old high school reunion from a memoir that they're writing.
Nice.
That's a really good hook.
Yeah.
Julia Peterson said, I didn't use the prompt because it's only one of my core cast who would be chasing me in the first place. And honestly, he scares me too much. That is understandable. But after all we do these characters, I imagine my characters would come after me with some really deep seated resentment.
Somebody is like, nice NaNoWriMo sweatshirt you're wearing. So yeah, I'm repping our NaNoWriMo merch right now, which is available in our store if you wanna go get one yourself. So
I recommend the pop socket. I literally got it and then I showed everybody for like 3 days because I was like, oh my god, this is so cute.
I'll put a link to our store just in case people wanna go check it out. Oh, also, that reminds me, we're also having a fundraiser right now for both NaNoWriMo and our friends at We Need Diverse Books, which is another nonprofit that helps make writing and literature and everything more accessible and more diverse. And yeah, we're combining our forces on a joint fundraiser for the next couple of weeks. So I'll put a link to that too, but basically if you want to donate $30 or more, we have a special pin and a sticker, and then really exciting at the end of the month. So it's like the last weekend in July, we're going to be having an auction, like an online auction, and we've had a bunch of published authors and people that we've worked with before donate things like query letter critiques. So you could get like a query critique from like Cami Garcia, or a postcard, like a personalized postcard from an author. We've had a couple of sponsors donate like their writing software and stuff like that. So anyway, just putting in a quick little plug for that. That'll be going on for the next 2 weeks, and I'll put those links in the chat as well. But
it's an amazing cause that, like, you know, I'm really proud that we're associated with. So yeah, let's there was one that I saw that really piqued my attention. Oh, In the Dark said, my hook was, it's just a few words on paper, it's not like it can kill you, right? Which I think is really funny because it's like irony. It was just a type of hook that we didn't discuss, but that's an example of it.
Oh, and just real quick, Sid asked, what's a query critique? Basically, a query letter is usually when you've got your book all polished and edited and you're ready to send it out. And if you want to get it published, you're ready to send it out to like agents or it's usually agents or publishers, the first ones, but you write a letter basically that's like, the query is, do you want to be my agent? And so that's usually the first thing that agents see when they're looking to sign on new authors. And so that's one of the things. It's like a short letter, but it can be it's like your first impression of a new author. So that's what a query letter is. And then a query critique is basically having somebody who is in the know look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is a good thing to say, or you might want to add this or whatever. So anyway.
Getting a query letter critique is so because it's so specialized because you need someone who has been through the process. And so I think this is a great opportunity for people to try to get one and then also support a great cause while doing so.
Yeah. Well, somebody asked where Blobby is. Blobby is actually downstairs in my house, so during the next word sprint I can run and get him so he can make a special guest appearance.
All these hooks are so good. Like, you guys already blew it out of the water. I'm so impressed.
Yeah. I also just want to say thank you to Ria for putting this this theme together today, because I was realizing as I was reading through it that I don't think I've ever sat down and had a lesson on hooks before. It's like something people talk about, but I've never dived into them before. So I'm excited to be focusing on them today.
Yeah, no, I got the idea from like one of these. I was looking at the chats and someone was asking for hook advice, and I was like, yeah, why? Like, why didn't? And when I looked it up, like there wasn't that much advice. I had to come do some like searching. So it's like, okay, this would be a really fun write-in that I hope people will enjoy. I'm glad people are enjoying it so far.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my hair is not cooperating, but I guess we can start the next. Oh wait, I have a discussion topic. So it's like speaking of hooks, we talked about a couple types of hooks, and like you don't have to use the ones that we talked about. But what are some types of hooks that are your personal favorites to both read and write? I think for me, it's definitely, I think I would iterated this enough, but those like start of the middle hooks or like the peculiar statement hooks, just because like those pique my curiosity the most because I'm like, okay, like what is happening? Like I have to more.
Yeah. I was thinking about it. I think my favorites are the ones that like they don't necessarily have to start in the middle of the action, but just like make it very clear that also because I read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, but like make it very clear that there is something about the world that we're reading about that is normal within the world, but like weird and different and strange to like us as the readers, and that juxtaposition really makes me want to read forward and see like, ooh, what is this world all about? Like, what are the rules here? So
I think like hooks are such a great way to really start like developing your world from like the get-go. Like even if you're not explicitly trying to, like I feel like every hook that we mentioned revealed something so interesting about the world that it's in. And so like in honor of world building month or world building back, you know, like it's also like you can world build in like the smallest and most unexpected places. And yeah.
Savannah S says, I love a good dialogue hook, which is great. And actually the novel that I've been working on, part of the reason it came to me, because I was like, the first line has to be, I'm the breadcrumb fairy. I'm the freaking breadcrumb fairy. And so it's like, that was the first line of dialogue that came to me. And then it was like, okay, I know what this first scene is. So I do love a good dialogue hook as well.
I love those too. I can't believe I forgot to mention that, but yeah, those are really good. Savannah also mentioned Handmaid's Tale has a good one. We Accept in My Head When Once a Gymnasium, a great example of world building from the get-go, and being like, wow, okay, why are they sleeping in a gym?
Yeah, that's great.
Saucy Duck Feather posted their hook. You can't get rid of me now, my dear. You created me. Now you'll learn why that was a bad idea. That is I agree with Leah. I really want to read the rest of that.
Why was it a bad idea? I have to know.
I know. It gives me like very much Frankenstein vibes, like Frankenstein the monster talking, but like the deer aspect of it, like what is the power dynamic in this scene? I'm so curious.
Skip says, I love hooks leading into the next chapter because they both wrap up the chapter and shift into the next. Like the chapter's over. Yay, what's next now? I'm excited.
Yeah, I love those too. And like I think we have like we talk a little bit about that in one of our next prompts, which I think we can maybe move on to.
Yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay, so for our second sprint, it's gonna be 10 minutes. And this prompt is to get your writing flowing for your personal projects. So if you want to continue the prompt that we had before, you're more than welcome. But if you want to start working on your camp project or whatever else, you are allowed to. So for this, so we're gonna, so basically we'll be working with a hook. So challenge yourself by selecting one of the following hook options to start off with your writing section. And you can do any of the hook options that we mentioned before or any that you want to. But if you want some specific guidance, here are 3 options that you can. So 1, you can either drop your readers in the middle of the action. 2, you can continue a cliffhanger. Or 3, you can start with like an ominous statement. But feel free to do whatever hook you want to, but we're going to start off one of your scenes. And so then just try creating a hook for your chapter if you don't usually do that, and progress like that.
Okay. Sorry, I was just putting the prompt in the chat and I accidentally put the wrong one in first. So, all right, 10 minutes. And I'll put this in the video description too, in case you want to, if you forget what it was or want to refer back to it. But yeah, 10 minutes choosing one of those 3 great hook ideas. And let's start writing now. Got about 5 minutes left. We're halfway through. Okay, time is up for that sprint. So go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. Again, if you want to share the workout that you got or how you used the prompt or a sentence that you wrote, feel free to drop that in the chat. And I apologize. I was going to go get Blobby, and then I forgot that he is no longer hanging out in my living room. He did go back to the NaNoWriMo office. For those of you who don't know, Blobby is this like big squishy stuffed dinosaur green creature, unclear. And he was the mascot on our virtual write-ins for a long time. So, but I can go back to the office and get him for next week's virtual write-in. So heads up about that.
Awesome. I've never had a virtual write-in with Bobby, so I'm also very excited to meet him. It'll be an honor. How did that sprint? I mean, I know you didn't get to write much because you're fishing for Bobby, but how did that go for you?
It went pretty good. Yeah, I was kind of just continuing on from what I was writing during the last prompt. But I always like it when that happens, even if I'm not using every prompt. Like if I find something that I'm like, ooh, this is like carrying me on for a while. So how about you?
I went back to my novel and I did the second one, which is Continue Cliffhanger, which is what I had. I won't say the cliffhanger because it's a spoiler. Not that the book is out, but anyway.
But when it is.
When it is, I don't want to spoil it prematurely. But yeah, so it went pretty well. I always think like starting, like making a cliffhanger is easy, but like picking up from that cliffhanger is like harder just because you're like, okay, people are anticipating this, but like, how do I not disappoint them?
Yeah. No, that's real. Cause I noticed that in TV shows a lot. Because it's like, it'll end on a cliffhanger on one episode, so you have to watch the next one. And then sometimes it's like, oh, well, we wrapped this up in the first minute of the next episode. So it wasn't actually that big of a deal. But.
Exactly. Yeah. I know some people have dropped their hooks in here. A lot of people got really good word counts. Phyllis got 639 words. Like that's so impressive. You must have like super typing hands because I cannot relate, but I think my typing speed is like 50, which is really embarrassing. So like that means if I like consistently wrote for 10 minutes, that'd be like 500 max. But you know what? We all at our own pace.
Yeah.
So, but Julia wrote, it's funny for a moment how humans are so brilliant at finding patterns in nature. They'll find patterns in anything, but then she reaches for the headset, hoping to push it back. That is definitely intriguing. Like, I don't know what that pertains to, but I'm very curious.
Mm-hmm. I like this one from Mark V. It says, a line I just wrote, the wolf got up and turned into a lion. Why couldn't he be battling against a butterfly? So it's like, yeah, I want to know why this person is battling a shape changer and why there is a shape changer.
Exactly. And who is the shape changer? Because when I heard that, I interpreted it as like the shape change. Never mind. That I've just pieced it together. It's kind of late, so I'm trying to like keep. But yeah.
Sid mentioned there's a NaNoWriMo email about breadcrumbs, and I just want to shout out that if you saw that email, we have camp counselors is what we call them, which are published authors who share little pieces of advice every weekday during Camp NaNoWriMo. And so we send that out on email and on social media. But this week's camp counselor is Lisa Stringfellow, who also, she wrote a middle grade novel that's been published recently, and she's also a teacher who's done our Young Writers program in schools, and so she had some really great pieces of advice. So it's in your Nano messages on the NaNoWriMo site as well.
And she also wrote a really good blog post,
Yes.
really informative blog post. So definitely go check that out too after this. But yeah, Lisa's amazing. Gently Lace said, I had a really interesting hook. They said, my hook was, my very own darling Venetia, by the time you receive this letter, I shall be dead or worse than dead. I want to read that.
Yeah, that's great. Man, this is the good and the bad thing about these virtual write-ins is that we just get little snippets of everybody's story. I'm like, I want to read these all right now.
I know. And I'm like, wow, I have so much hope for the literary scene. It's just the talent is so abundant. There's gonna be, you guys are all gonna release amazing, amazing books, I believe.
Yeah.
There was one that I saw. Leah said my hook was, there are two things my Capricorn's mom loved more than anything else in life: astrology and Grand Theft Auto.
That's great. Yeah. Does make me wonder if they mean the video game or like actual Grand Theft Auto.
I just associated the video game, but I mean, that would make sense. Capricorns and Grand Theft Auto. Transcriber said, I haven't hit so much of a hook, but a plot twist. My MC has been into a fantasy. It has been into a fantasy world, and the main love interest turns out to be the one who has done it.
Nice.
Dang. Stealing a heart would definitely be a hook. That would be a great way. I love like action sequences. I love when books start off like in the middle of like the most chaotic scene ever, because I'm like, whoa, okay, I am really immersed in this world. Like,
yeah. And it's, I don't know, I find, because I usually find when I write like my very first draft, the very first time that I sit down to write something, I usually write like 20, 30 pages of just like nothing happening and just like exploring the characters and how they feel and like, I don't know, maybe their backstory. And then sometimes I'll take a look at it and I'll be like, this is all really good information to have, but scrapping all of it, none of it is actually going into the book. So if you're like, I don't know how to start in the middle of a scene, you don't have to. You can write a scene and then later on decide like, ooh, I want to start in the middle of this scene that I've already written. So.
And there's also like, I think start like picking, like when you're at least in the beginning of like a novel, picking an action scene that's too much. I know for a while for my novel, my first like chapter was the main character in like a like WWE but like underground fight scene.
Yes.
Which was really like, it was very cool, but it was very gory and just a lot at once. And so people were like, whoa, okay, it's like, okay, maybe that's a little too much. So then I made it to like they're going to a carnival and then they get arrested kind of instead. So ease them into the drama.
To say, man, speaking of hooks, I want to read your book, Ria.
I promise it's mostly hooks and that's it, because that's really what I'm best at. Everything else just doesn't compare.
Oh yes, Sailor Star Knight says, my first draft is 90% dialogue, just people telling me what's going to happen. Once it's out there, I can actually turn it into a story.
I think that's amazing. When I write my first drafts, I just like overwrite everything, but then also underwrite the most important parts somehow, some way. But yeah.
That's what future drafts are for.
Exactly. To flesh out the details that really matter that people always ask me about. Cliffhanger scene where the antagonist is the one who saves them.
Ooh.
That is interesting. I wonder why.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're ready to go on to our next
Yeah,
prompt. I didn't realize how much the time, how fast the time has flown.
I know, right?
But so for this final sprint, we're gonna continue off the last prompt and touch on the second part of today's theme, which is progression. So we're gonna continue the story that you were writing with that hook. So whether it was the previous prompt or your own novel, now that you've finished with the hook and the introduction, so make some progression. So when you're doing this, I mean, like, when I say make some progression, I just mean like continue writing the story. But kind of think about who are the other characters involved, where is the scene set, what happens after your hook, because the hook is a great foundation for a good scene, but the execution and the progression is also really, really important to make sure that that hook has a really good like house built on its foundation. And so when you're done with this prompt, and like Catherine said before, you can always reevaluate what your hook should be, because maybe while you're writing, you find a better place to start that scene. And so when we're done with this prompt, we're going to take a short amount of time to reassess if the hook we had written in like the last sprint has served the rest of this section well, or if you would want to consider changing where you start this scene or your story. So basically, long story short, just keep writing your what you've been writing, and then we'll reassess at the end if you started at the right place.
Yeah. All right. So I think another 10 minutes for this prompt, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, then let's start writing now. 5 minutes left, halfway through. All right, time is up. go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. Again, if you want to share something that you wrote or your word count or your total word count for this whole write-in, feel free to put that in the chat.
I loved all the stuff that we read today. It was so good. You can drop lines, but since it's more of like a continuation, I hope you guys progress. But I think since we kind of ran out of time, go back and read your hook again and or finish writing the scene and then read your hook again and then decide, is this the right place for my hook for my story to begin? Is this the right hook for this scene or for the story? And you might change your mind a couple times. I know I have in my stuff. So it's a great exercise.
Mm-hmm. I saw some people exchanging like NaNoWriMo names in the chat. And from your story of like people reading your first draft and being like, oh, whoa, this is maybe a little too much. Like that's helpful information. Like having other people read just like a sentence or a scene and being like, okay, what do you think of this? And usually if I'm like, okay, if 3 people tell me that I should change a thing, then I should change it, even if I love it so much and I'm very attached to it. I'm like, okay, clearly this isn't working the way that I want it to, but that's like my personal rule about it.
Exactly. I think nano buddies are such a great way to find that, because like no one's going to help you more than a fellow writer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So true. Awesome. Well, yeah, we're kind of at time, but you're right. The time just kind of flew by today. So thank you everybody so much for joining. It's always so fun to do these. And yeah, don't forget to update your word count on your Camp NaNoWriMo project with however much you got written during today's virtual write-in. And yeah, if you do want to check out that fundraiser that we have going on with We Need Diverse Books, I'll just drop that link in the chat there again. Yeah, anything else? Am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll be back same time next week, and I will try to have Blobby next week, so that the people who don't know him can meet him, and the people who do know him can say hello again. So, all right. Well, yeah, I think that's it for me. So, yeah, thanks everyone, and I hope you had a good writing session today, and maybe keep writing if you're going on a good track. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.